is restaurant just north of County Line Road on US 1.
Rubber bands?
At Blue Point Marina. It's a great place to come and celebrate and watch all the Trump boats and all the Trump flags and all the Trump people. By the way, let the people in Charlotte know that we're here tonight. Hey, RNC, Charlotte, Club-8.25 USA. Club-8.25 USA. Come on, I can't hear it. But I'm here in Charlotte. Come on. Charlotte, North Carolina.
All right, see if you got it now.
I told you, every day is a surprise when we come here, right? So, somebody showed me something. We do the Trump national anthem every meeting just before 7 o'clock when I bring Joe up here to open up the meeting officially. And when I saw this one, it was getting goosebumps. Everybody, please rise for the Trump national anthem. Dan did it.
If tomorrow all things were gone and work from home and I had to start again with just my children and my wife, I thank my lucky stars to be living here today, where the flag still stands for freedom and they can't take that away.
Everybody, you know the words. Here we go.
I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the land who died and who gave that right to me. And when we stand up next to you and defend her till the day, 'cause there ain't no doubt of this land. God bless the USA. From the lakes of Minnesota to the hills of Tennessee, across the plains of Texas, over sea to shining sea, from Detroit down to Houston, and New York to LA, where there's pride in every American heart, and it's time to
See if she got the new link. See if Mary got the new link.
That song never gets old. Never. All right, ladies and gentlemen, you guys didn't come here to hear me or anybody else. Here's the man you really came to hear. In 2017, somebody had a vision. And he said, how do we keep the energy going between elections? One man had that vision. And today, we are all here because of that vision. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the president and founder of Club-8.24.2020 USA, Mr. Joe Buck.
thank you. My election is over, and you re-elected me with 73% of the vote. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Welcome, everybody. Really appreciate you coming out. As we do each and every time we get together, we first want to honor God and country. I'm going to ask candidate for State Representative District 88, Danielle Matson, come on up and lead us in our invocation.
That's good.
Lord God, we just thank you for this day. And we thank you that, God, you are a God of victory, of power, of healing. God, you are a rock and our refuge, our ever-present help in any time of trouble. And Lord, I just pray that you would bless every person here. I pray that you would bless the families represented here today. I pray that you would bless and help President Trump all the way down to our local elected officials. I pray you would give every elected official wisdom. I pray that your good and perfect will be done. Lord, I ask for victory in the name of Jesus for every righteous person that is running for office. I pray, Lord, that you would protect the election in Jesus' name. I pray that you would rebuke and stop any fraud. And I pray for justice and peace in our land. And Lord, I also pray for unity in the name of Jesus. I pray that we can remember what is so wonderful about America. Realize how blessed we are to be here, Lord, and unite, Lord. I pray that we could come together as a nation and work together to do good works so that others can see and they would glorify our Father in heaven. And Lord, I just pray that if anybody is in this room that needs healing, Lord, that you would heal them in the name of Jesus. I lift up all those friends and family that may need healing. We pray for healing in the name of Jesus. We thank you for the freedom we have in America to assemble and have the freedom of speech. So I just pray that you would bless and protect this meeting. I pray your good and perfect will be done. And Lord, we thank you that the best is yet to come. And I pray that miracles would happen in each one of our lives and even today. And we thank you for the miracles you've already done. So Lord, we just celebrate you tonight and celebrate the opportunity to join together. We love you and praise you. In the name of Jesus I pray. Amen.
Daniel, thank you very much. I'm proud of the name of Jesus, but in our meetings we also have rabbis come up and give our invocation, and we're sensitive to all faiths. So just want to let everybody know that. We're going to move on with our Pledge of Allegiance, and then we're going to have a couple of songs out there. I'm going to turn it back over to one of our volunteers, Vinny Caldera. Thank you, Vinny, Randy, the guys on the soundboard for everything you do to help these meetings run.
It's my pleasure. By the way, I couldn't do this without two of my closest buds right here. Don Parker Jr., Dan Firebaugh, Jeff Good. Dan flew in last night from Atlanta. Comes here everyone just to help us with the video production. So a round of applause for these guys, because without them, I'd be talking on a soapbox in the parking lot. Thank you, gentlemen. True friend. All right. We were introduced to Matt Stone Jr. a few minutes ago, and he blessed us with his artistic talent. And what a set of lungs, huh? That kid belongs in Vegas. He's going to bring back those blue suede shoes someday. Anyway, I had the honor to meet his father. His father's a deputy with the Palm Beach Sheriff's Office. So I ask you now to please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
And just when you thought you heard the last from Matt Stone Jr., here he is. Please rise for the national anthem. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous
the
ramparts we watched were so
gallantly streaming,
and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof to the night that our flag
was still there.
Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave
For the
land of the free and of the home of the brave. Ladies and gentlemen, please remain standing. Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, or amber waves of flame, for purple mountains and majesties above my ruined plain. America, America, God shed His grace on me, and crowned my good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea. For beautiful, for spacious skies, for amber wings of grain, for purple mountain majesties above black fruited plain. America, America, God shed His grace on me. And crowned my good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea. America, America, God shed His grace on me, and crowned my good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, give it up for Matt Stone. You're going to see this guy again, and so's the president. Matt just doesn't know it yet. Thank you, Matt. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to give it back to our esteemed founder and president, Mr. Joe Butler.
Thank you. Wow, what a great song. Good pleasure. We're going to see that guy later on, I can imagine. All right. Hey, there's something we're not going to be able to compete with in the Joe Biden campaign. Apparently last night he announced over 500 million people tuned into his acceptance speech. I hate to admit it, I was one of those. I didn't watch a minute of the Democratic convention, except I decided at 10:45 p.m. on Thursday night to tune in to see what he had to say in his acceptance speech. So at 10:45 I prepared myself. It was to me like going to the dentist, with much anticipation of pain. But then I fell asleep, and before I knew it, it was all over and I didn't feel a thing. Oh my. Joe's the gift that keeps giving, that's for sure. I want to give a shout out to our security team. Where's Alan? Alan over there. Thank you so much for all the things that you guys do. Security team around. We got a bunch of guys to thank you for the volunteers, for everybody. Like I said, there's probably 40, 50 people in the room who help us each month. Volunteers, ushering, and manning the tables in the back. Thank you so much for making this club a success. I'll talk about my cohorts here a little later on, but we just want to welcome everybody again to our meeting tonight. If you didn't come here to listen to me, So we're going to go, I'm going to give a few announcements here and then we're going to move on. First, I want to recognize the candidates that are in the room for this cycle. We have, and we'll hear from later, Laura Loomer, Congressional. We also will hear from Jim Pruden, Congressional District 22. We have, I saw in the back middle of the room here, John Maples running for candidate for County Commission District 3. And John, I know Laura Diaz was invited to speak. I hadn't seen him come in the room yet, but he's here. Laura Diaz running for sheriff, Palm Beach County Sheriff. Well, I'm happy to want to thank you for the sheriffs helping us in our security here tonight. Thank you so much, guys, for the job that you day out. I'll give a hand for the sheriffs that are in the room.
Folks, we back the blue here, right? Donald Trump is the law and order president. Let's show him we appreciate him.
We've heard from Daniel Madsen, candidate for Florida House District 88. Rick Roth, current state representative, is in the room as well, and we think he sat somewhere over here. There he is, Rick Roth. Thank you for coming out, Rick. And then we have Jim Davis, Jupiter Inlet Commission. Jim needs some help. Jim's in a runoff. You can look Jim up at VoteJimDavis0530.com. Jupiter Inlet Commission. He needs some help. He didn't get enough votes to win in the primary. He's in a runoff. It's going to be a great race. We also, I see Juan Gill in the room, running for Congress. I don't know how you did, Juan, but thank you for running. All right, so anybody I missed? Thank you. Oh,
Jesse.
Susan Casitas also. Susan Rivera, thank you for coming. Appreciate it. Sorry to have you on the sign-in sheet. All right, want to just gauge the interest again. We're going to have an election watch party here on November 3rd. It's roughly going to be $50 per person. We're going to have a spread of food out here, and we'll have gifts for people who sign up for that. Obviously, with social distancing, I think we can get about 500 people in this room. We'll have the screen set up to be a television feed, but we'll be sending more information out on that. We have some get out the vote people to speak here tonight. Kyle Conger, if you want to work on your way up here. Kyle Conger is the field representative for the Trump campaign, and he's going to give us some information on how you can help get out the vote. Kyle, come on up.
Thanks, Joe. Hello, everybody. My name is Kyle Conger. I'm the field organizer for the Trump campaign in Boca Raton. And thank you. I'd like to encourage all of you to come and join us on the field because as much as it's great here, we've got to get out there and show our support for President Trump. The doors on the phones. Thank you all so much for coming. All right, Dan, can we get that video, please? Got another surprise coming. Look at that. World record. Get it moving, let's get some sound. It's a video, I promise.
Ken Baker invited.
Come on.
But I didn't. Stand up and raise your leg.
Ladies and gentlemen, I have another surprise. This guy needs no introduction. Captain Carlos Gavidia.
Wow, what an intro. I only have 60 seconds, I'm going to make it very short and sweet. We broke the world record in Tampa last week.
Yeah.
It was amazing, and we had Pam Bondi and Hogan Gidley on the board, on the boat. So it was amazing. They really got to see the paratroopers and everything, the flags land. So they really, it made a lot of press. We have one September 7th here in Jupiter, Palm Beach. You don't want to miss it. Yep. We got the Don Jr., Kimberly Guilfoyle, and a couple other surprises happening. They're going to be on the lead boat. You're going to love it. And if you like the air show I did before, you're going to love the next one. I've got a 7,000 square foot flag being produced and 2,000 to 3,000 square foot flag with backing the blue. All right, so you don't want to miss it. There you go. Thank you.
Thank you, Carlos. All right, I'm going to invite once more onto the stage our illustrious president, Mr. Joe Buck.
Thank you very much. I want to introduce just a couple of, the first call I made when I was thinking about forming this club was what I call my political best friend, and that's Larry Snowden. And Larry Snowden's our vice president of the club. He does a lot more work than I do, believe me. I mean, he handles, you see our Facebook page, that's the work of Larry. The emails that go out, that's the work of Larry. And for all that work that in addition to Larry on our board, his wife Sue Snowden and Linda Stott, a board member as well. All of us together have had the vision for this and carried this out with the help of our volunteers. Larry, come on up.
Audio, yeah. It's going to be audio driven.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, everyone. I've got some introductions to make, but I also want to make a couple of acknowledgments. As you know, we're in convention week, and there are going to be festivities all week, but on Thursday, the climax is the president accepts the nomination. And unfortunately, under the circumstances, it's going to be a very limited audience this year. And a few people have been invited to be in that rose garden. And I'd like to point out that the gentleman sitting right in front of me will be there. Carlos, stand up. And in addition, two of Club-45's very own are in this very limited small group of people. Linda Stott and Sue Snowden have both been invited to be in the Rose Garden when the president accepts the nomination. Let me ask Laura Diaz, are you here tonight? Yeah, okay, unfortunately Laura's not with us tonight, but I'd like to introduce a candidate that's come a long way in a very short period of time. And this person is Jim Pruden.
Oh, yes.
Jim has been a registered Republican for 47 years. Jim grew up on a cattle farm in southern Maryland and later relocated to Florida. He has been a resident of Congressional District 22 since 1982. Jim has a Bachelor of Science, an MBA, a Juris Doctorate degree. Jim has worked for more than 45 years in technology, business, and law. Jim is a board member of the Boca Raton Republican Club, and he's now the Republican candidate and nominee for the congressional representative from Florida's Congressional District 22. It is my honor to recognize and introduce Jim Pruden.
Well, good evening. I am in fact Jim Pruden, and I'm running for Congress in Florida's District 22. And I'm running against Ted Deutsch. You know, when I started this campaign, had two objectives. One was I was going to use my expertise and my resources to help create as much pull-through as possible to win the House of Representatives. And second, to create pull-through for President Trump and get the clean sweep in Florida. I heard that the objective in this area was to get a turnout for President Trump of 45% and count on the rest of the state to carry the day for us. Well, I don't agree. We are going to hit the ground with our team, and we're going to pull hard, and we are going to get our president over the line. We're going to beat 50% and carry this state. And we're going to get another House back in the House of Representatives so that we can give our president his second term with unobstructed work. Now, those of you who may or may not know Ted Deutsch, he was very active in the effort to try and get our president out of office. He sat on the Judiciary Committee, and in fact, he made a public announcement in the newspapers 2 months before this telephone call that they used as a sham to try and impeach our president. And so 2 months before that, he had no basis whatsoever, and yet made a public announcement that he would vote to impeach our president. So he, Adam Schiff, Nancy Pelosi, and his co-conspirators in the deep state, they've contrived with the intent to deprive you of your vote for our president. So come November 3rd, I intend to deprive Ted Deutsch of his seat in Congress. Now, originally I thought about talking about all the accomplishments our president's had, but quite frankly, it would take hours for me to go through those accomplishments, which is nothing short of absolutely remarkable when you consider the fact that he got all this done with a ball and chain around his neck called the U.S. Congress. Instead, I'll say that I will stand beside our president and I will support and defend our free market capitalist system, and we will oppose the socialist movement, which is really the communist movement within our Congress. And we will put an end to the tyranny that they How many people are sick and tired of turning on the TV at night and watching the anarchy in the streets, burning our businesses, beating people, taking over, and claiming they're going to defund the police, standing out in the streets and demanding that people get out of their homes because they're going to take them over? Who wants that? Well, when we get a Republican Congress, we're going to push back on this movement. There will be no defund the police movement. And by the way, the Democrat Congress was trying to do an end run on the people of the United States. While we were being distracted with the defund the police movement in the streets and with these local governments, Ted Deutsch co-introduced the bill in Congress to supposedly reform policing. Now, everybody said that it would be a good idea to generate a database if you have police who are not good actors. If they get terminated in one jurisdiction, they should not be allowed to go to another. And that fraud they've been using to get everybody on the bandwagon to support them. Well, I read that legislation, and in that legislation, if that passed, we no longer would have to worry about the defund the police movement because that legislation would end policing as we know it. So we'll go up, and we will put an end to this. I've worked over the past year with a number of doctors and folks that I'm representing clinics over the years and administrators. And I've devised a plan that I intend to introduce and push through Congress to reduce health care costs to everybody by approximately 45%. Now, that will be achieved through a significant reform of health care insurance, as well as a significant change in the way we do business and procurement of drugs and medical devices, as well as the way we handle administration of healthcare claims. We will no longer tolerate having insurance companies or the government stand between us and our doctors and our medical care. Now, next to the socialist movement, the next greatest threat that we have to our country is the national debt. I can't tell you how significant it is right now. We're on a fast track to bankruptcy. Therefore, when I go to Congress, I will get together with the other leadership who have been pushing for a balanced budget mandate, and we will get a balanced budget mandate. And we will not allow our country to go bankrupt, because that's what the socialists want. They can acquire change in our political and economic and social structure through two means. Either one, through anarchy, which they've been trying for the last 60 days, or second, to bankrupt the United States. And neither we will stand for when we take over the House. I will stand by our president in his efforts to continue to secure our borders. I support a zero tolerance on illegal immigration and border jumping. And I will support our president's efforts in imposing a new immigration plan that is based upon merit and close screening of candidates who want to come to our country. As far as our Second Amendment rights goes, our president stands strong on the Second Amendment, and I will stand with him on that. No one should be deceived by this mantra of taking away firearms as a means of curbing violence. And if anybody challenges you on that, you remind them of September 11, 2001, we had the greatest mass murder in the history of the United States, and not a single shot was fired. Therefore, there's nobody who's ever been able to put forth any evidence to show that if we confiscate firearms, it would make any material difference in murder or mass murder. I will stand by our president in his efforts to help out and secure the Jewish community. That includes opposing the BDS movement and supporting Israel and recognizing and continuing to recognize their rights to Western Bank settlements, their rights to the strategic Golan Heights, and we will continue to defund UNRWA and those organizations that support terrorists. Now, another provision that Ted Deutsch supported last summer was when the Republican Congress members attempted to put legislation called the Born Alive Survivor Protection Act. That act provided that if a child was born
unborn alive as a consequence of an attempted or failed abortion attempt, that the doctor had a responsibility to preserve and protect that child and give it the same level of care as any other human being. The Democrat Congress, including Ted Deutsch, voted that act down. I intend, as one of my first acts, if I go to Congress and it's not otherwise done, to reintroduce the Born Alive Survivors Protection Act and get that passed. Now, our president has done a lot for our country. He's reduced the unemployment to historical levels for our members of the black community. He's reduced the unemployment for our women in the community, and he's reduced unemployment in general, all before this COVID arrived on our shores, which we all find very suspicious as it came out of Wuhan, and the NIH, under the Obama administration, had funneled money to a third party who gave funding to the Wuhan lab to do COVID experiments. I have yet to see any evidence that to completely eliminate the prospect that this dreaded disease escaped from that lab. And I think when we go up there, we should have extensive investigation to determine the origin of it. Our president, in helping out our community, had the vision to pass opportunity zones. And I have some plans that I want to introduce to enhance the viabilities of the opportunity zones, which provided an incentive to infuse investment in those communities and provide our underserved communities with greater opportunity. I want to enhance that and recognize that folks in the lower income brackets deserve a break in it. They deserve it to be directed not through the federal government, because the federal government, with the Democrat programs, have kept the underserved community anchored in a lifestyle that is substandard. Therefore, I will recommend that individuals making $100,000 or less will have tax-free income after their 40 hours of work. Anybody who's ever taken a paycheck knows that overtime pay is taxed at a greater level than regular tax. And when you look at your paycheck, you say, why in the world did I bother? And that should not be for our lower income citizens. They deserve an opportunity to increase their capital worth and advance through economic class advancement. Now, since the election, this is the first large crowd that I've been in front of, and I'd like to say thank you very much for supporting me in elections. Thank you to the voters, thank you to the donors, and thank you to the volunteers for supporting me. It is my pleasure tonight to accept the nomination as the Republican representative for U.S. House of Representatives for District 22. I accept. If anybody wants to find out more about our campaign, you can find us at JimCruddenForCongress.com. That's JimCruddenForCongress.com. Thank you.
Hey, I get my head is off. It's crazy business.
My counterpart, State Committee Woman Cindy Tindell, still in the room. Cindy, wait back there. Listen, I didn't really want to introduce her because I got 73% of the vote. She got 74% of the vote in her race. Or was it 75? I forget. Great job, Cindy. I have the distinct pleasure of introducing Laura Loomer. Laura Loomer is a Jewish conservative investigative journalists and activists. Originally from Tucson, Arizona, Laura began her journalism career working as an undercover journalist for Project Veritas. Her investigations have uncovered fraud and corruption within the Hillary Clinton campaign, Islamic extremism on college campuses, the Las Vegas shooting, flaws and loopholes within the U.S. immigration system, and widespread voter fraud throughout the United States. Because of her effectiveness, Loomer was targeted by the left and big tech. It is banned on nearly every single social media platform, including Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Uber, Lyft, Uber Eats, PayPal, Venmo, GoFundMe, Medium, Teespring, and even Chase Bank shut down her access to her online banking account. And most recently, Comcast accidentally deleted her. Loomer, who is and always has been a loyal supporter of President Donald J. Trump, continues to fight for free speech and First Amendment rights for all Americans. Loomer has traveled all around the world for her investigations, and she is mostly known for her guerrilla-style journalism and often conducted ambush interviews on live stream, which became known as getting Loomered. Some of the people she's confronted on camera include Hillary Clinton, Chelsea Clinton, Huma Abedin, James Comey, Maxine Waters, Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Michael Avenatti, Tim Kaine, lots of booze in this list, huh? Nicholas Sarsour, Lisa Milano, and former DNC Chair Keith Ellison. Laura Loomer is running for Congress in Florida's 21st Congressional District, where in addition to actually representing her constituents, she will teach Lois Frankel what it's meant to be Loomer.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much. I'm happier to be here this evening than you might realize, because as some of you may know, this is the same exact room in which last Tuesday we celebrated my victory. Before I get to all of that, I just want to take a moment to congratulate Joe Budd on his re-election as state committee man.
Yeah.
And thank you for your support and your friendship. I look forward to working with you. I also want to thank Joe for coming to my victory party on Tuesday, and I want to thank the rest of you as well who attended, especially board member of Club-8.24.2020 and the Laura Loomer for Congress volunteer coordinator, Linda Stock. I'd like to thank Michael Barnett, the chairman of the Republican Party of Palm Beach, for calling me the evening of my election to congratulate me, and for his kind words in the press about me. I must also thank Joe Bruder's, the chairman of the RPOF, who came out early to endorse my candidacy. If you're an official delegate representing the state of Florida this year, please stand up. Today, on the RNC convention floor, Chairman Cruz delivered 122 GOP delegates to President Trump from the great state of Florida.
Yeah.
I'm very happy and very honored to announce that one of those delegates is my brilliant chief strategist and consultant, Karen Jordan, who delivered 66 out of 67 Florida counties to President Trump in 2016. So let's get the chairwoman of the Republican National Committee, who also paid me some wonderful compliments. I'm a political rock star and a change agent for the Republican Party. And I'm really looking forward to meeting her in person. I want to take a moment finally to thank my gracious primary opponent, Christian Acosta, who I spoke with on the phone the other day. Christian and I have shared goals: getting President Donald Trump reelected and beating Lois Frankel, and we're both committed to the fight ahead. So I look forward to working with Christian Acosta. I know that some of the people in this room may have voted for other primary candidates, and that's okay. I know there have also been very strong opinions this year about some of us and some of the candidates who ran. But we're all in this together now. And I want you to know that I'm here to listen to your ideas, and I need your support. Club-45 is the backbone of the conservative grassroots movement in this district and in Palm Beach County. Your determination and your hard work in supporting our president is vital to our country's future. You do it every day, and not always in the easiest of circumstances, and I want to personally pay tribute to you all today for all that you've done and all that you will do in the future. So God bless you, and thank you. On Tuesday, we celebrated an historic victory here in Florida's 21st District. Confounding our critics, my campaign successfully secured the Republican nomination. That means that in just 10 weeks, I will face off against Democrat incumbent Lois Frankel.
You got this.
And then, God willing, come November, I will become the President of the United States' own congressional representative.
Yay!
It is only thanks to groups like Club-45 that I have been able to get this far, and it is only with your help that I'll cross the finish line with a victory in November. I don't take any of you for granted, and I'm humbled by the faith that District 21 has placed in me, and I won't let you down. I've set myself a very ambitious goal. Along the way, I've made many powerful enemies in big tech, the media, and the progressive establishment, and I'm sure I'll be making many more. I'm under no illusions about the scale of the fights that I picked. I know that the enemy plays dirty. I know that their favorite currency is slander, and I knew that when I accepted the nomination that I would be the subject of fresh smears and lies and libels every single day from now until the election. As you know, the president himself has taken an interest in my race. On Tuesday, he tweeted several messages of support in a notorious Trump tweet storm. He tweeted, "Great going, Laura. You have a great chance against the Pelosi puppet." It was a humbling moment, but I don't need to tell you what happened next. Howls of outrage from the establishment and the fake news media. They were stunned and absolutely furious that President Trump had the chutzpah to endorse an unconventional first-time candidate like myself. Because I've always been outspoken and provocative, fighting on the front lines of the free speech wars, it's easy to cherry-pick phrases that I may have used in the past and to take them out of context to suggest that I'm a hateful or intolerant person. That's why far-left organizations and media groups like the Washington Post and the Anti-Defamation League, which ironically spends its time smearing and defaming conservatives, are now attempting to do to me. The president himself is no stranger to these tactics. They didn't work on him in 2016, and they're not going to work on me now. Unlike the radical socialists, jihadists, and Marxists of the Democrat Party, I hold respectable and reasonable mainstream opinions that millions of other Americans share. So why the outcry? I'll tell you, it's because we have them spooked. They know that I'm not forced to win. The DCCC knows that Lois Frankel is in trouble. And Lois Frankel also knows that she's in trouble. Because this supposedly It's now in play.
Yeah.
So, as usual, the Democrats are doing what the Democrats do best when they can't win the arguments. They're calling everyone names. Just today, The Guardian illustrated a story about supposedly extremist Republicans with a photo from our campaign victory party on Tuesday. But you know, if we're extremists, if I'm an extremist, then that makes 63 million Americans extremists too. You just can't make this stuff up. And that's why you're going to hear a lot of really awful things about me over the next few months. Some of them you'll recognize from fake news stories, and I'm sure the forces of darkness will dream up some new lies too, because they always do. But I'm ready, and I'm anticipating their moves, and I won't be blown off course. I want you all to know something about me, or what I believe. And that is that if you want to know something about me, or you have a question about where I stand, or something that I may have said, all you have to do is ask me. And I will answer your question. And I urge you in this room to remember the last nationally popular candidate who was subjected to a daily onslaught of lies, half-truths, and vicious media commentary. I'm talking, of course, about my future constituent, President Donald Trump. None of this should surprise us. This is who the Democrats are. This is what they do. And to that, I say, bring it on. For the first time in decades, the Republican Party has a path to victory in this district. With my strategist, Karen Giorno, and with my incredible campaign team, we are walking that path, and I invite all of you to join us on that path. Mark my words, I am going to win this race. That they deserve. In the weeks to come, I will be giving every single voter in District 21 a reason to vote Republican. The sort of reason that they haven't had in decades. I'll talk to them about law and order, healthcare, and the economy, and the state of our great nation. I'll make sure that their First and their Second Amendment rights are always protected. And I'll make sure that this community's values and priorities are communicated in Congress. In case you haven't picked up on it, I am itching for this fight. I love fighting. I love fighting radical Democrats. It's long overdue, and I'm not going to shy away from any criticism or skepticism. I'm going to run towards the fire and not away from it. And I'm going to win on November 3rd because I understand something that my opponents don't about the soul of the American people. We are a nation defined by willful determination, defined by our refusal to accept failure and defeat, and defined by our fighting spirit. And that fighting spirit is a spirit that I have embraced my entire life. My opponent, Lois Frankel, on the other hand, has spent her entire life in politics, longer than I've been alive. She is a 3-decade career swamp creature. Lois Frankel is bought and paid for by special interests in Washington, D.C. Just as big tech outsources jobs to foreign workers, Lois Frankel outsources her vote to Nancy Pelosi, proxy voting, whichever way the Democrat machine tells her to. And it's why President Trump calls her Pelosi puppet, and it's is why we call her Lazy Lois.
Yeah.
The people of this district are no longer represented by Lois Frankel at all, but instead by Nancy Pelosi and the tyrants in Silicon Valley. As I crisscross the district and I listen to everyday Americans talking about how the Chinese virus is affecting their lives and how these unconstitutional mandates have crippled their jobs and impacted their families and their livelihoods, Frankel is staying home, more concerned with demonizing our police, praising rioters and looters, vandals, and thieves. He would rather that your businesses be shut down and give violent lawlessness a platform than for you to be able to pay your bills, send your children to school, enjoy your community parks, or attend your churches and your synagogues. As Lois Frankel's long political career finally comes to a wind, my opponent is showing signs of fatigue at just the time that we need a renewed sense of energy and purpose. She is absent at just the moment we most need an advocate. She is aloof, just as we crave someone who will roll up their sleeves and get to work.
She's lazy. She's lazy.
Lois Frankel shows moral indifference when we need someone who is dedicated and hands-on. Like Joe Biden, Lois Frankel is locked in her basement, literally. By her own account, she received her primary results from her couch in West Palm Beach, Florida. Sad. You know, really sad. When was the last time any of us saw Lois Frankel out in her own district? When Donald Trump was committing federal aid in wake of last year's Category 5 Hurricane Dorian, Lois Frankel was nowhere to be found. A win against Lois Frankel is a win against the Democrat Party nationally. It will hurt them. It will hurt them to lose Lois Frankel. From all the way down here in Florida, we have the power to give congressional Democrats a political black eye that they deserve. As you may know, Lois Frankel actually ran unopposed in 2018. But we are not giving her that same luxury here in 2020. We're taking her on and we're going to beat her. Like President Trump, I am not bought and paid for by special interests or party bosses. I do not work for the Republican Party leadership, the establishment, or Washington elitists. I'm not one of them, and I never want to be one of them, because I'm one of you. I'm going to honor the commitment that you've made to me by giving Lois Frankel the electoral fight of her life. And then, by the grace of God, and with your help, I'm going to win this election on November 3rd. God bless you, God bless President Donald Trump, and God bless the United States of America.
USA, USA, USA.
Another hand for Laura Loomer. Before I introduce our next speaker, I want to speak to you just a couple minutes about my personal experience running for Congress as well. My first run for Congress, I lost that race by 36 votes. In a primary, not the general election, in a primary. And I made a mistake during that process. One of the mistakes I made was a primary can often get heated. And I said I wouldn't support the winner, the nominee. That election was on a Tuesday, the next day was a Wednesday, where they had the Palm Beach County Republican meeting. And on that Wednesday, I had to eat humble pie and eat my words, and I stood up there, swallowed my pride, and endorsed the nominee, because at the end of the day, any Republican on that nominee ballot for the primary is better than any Democrat on that ballot. And I want you to know that if you supported another candidate, and that candidate has not come out, whether it's District 21 or District 22, to endorse the winner, you need to encourage that candidate to do the right thing, because this is about giving support to President Trump, and we need to win every seat in the House as possible. To introduce my next speaker, Roger Stone, I'd like to go a flashback here and read a letter on behalf of President Donald J. Trump. This letter is dated July 10th, 2020. Today, President Donald J. Trump signed an executive grant of clemency, commuting the unjust sentence of Roger Stone Jr. Roger Stone is a victim of the Russian hoax that the left and its allies in the media perpetrated for years in an attempt to undermine the Trump presidency. There was never any collusion between the Trump campaign or the Trump administration with Russia. Such collusion was never anything other than a fantasy of partisans unable to accept the results of the 2016 election. The delusion spawned endless and pharisaical investigations conducted at a great taxpayer expense, looking for evidence that did not exist. As it became clear that these witch hunts would never bear fruit, the special counsel's office resorted to process-based charges leveled at high-profile people in an attempt to manufacture the false impression of criminality lurking below the surface. These charges were the product of recklessness born of frustration and malice. This is why the out-of-control Mueller prosecutors, desperate for splashy headlines to compensate for a failed investigation, set their sights on Mr. Stone. Roger Stone is well known for his nearly 50 years of work as a consultant for high-profile Republican candidates, including President Ronald Reagan, Senator Bob Dole, and many others, and of course Richard Nixon. He is also well known for his outspoken support for President Donald J. Trump and opposition to Hillary Clinton. Mr. Stone was charged by the same prosecutors from the Mueller investigation tasked with finding evidence of collusion with Russia. Because no such evidence exists, however, they could not charge him for any collusion-related crime. Instead, they charged him for his conduct during their investigation. The simple fact is that if the special counsel had not been pursuing an absolutely baseless investigation, Mr. Stone would not be facing time in prison. In addition to charging Mr. Stone with alleged crimes arising solely from their own improper investigation, the Mueller prosecutors also took pains to make a public and shameful spectacle of his arrest. Mr. Stone is a 67-year-old man with numerous medical conditions who had never been convicted of another crime. Rather than allow him to surrender himself, they used dozens of FBI agents with automatic weapons and tactical equipment, armored vehicles, and an amphibious unit to execute a pre-dawn raid of his home where he was with his wife for many years. Notably, CNN cameras just magically were present to broadcast these events live to the world, even though they swore they were not notified. It was just a coincidence that they were there together with the FBI early in the morning. Not only was Mr. Stone charged by overzealous prosecutors, pursuing a case that never should have existed, and arrested in an operation that never should have been approved, but there was also serious questions about the jury in the case. The forewoman of his jury, for example, concealed the fact that she is a member of of the so-called liberal resistance to the Trump presidency. In now deleted tweets, the activist juror vividly and openly attacked President Trump and his supporters. Mr. Stone, like every American, deserved a fair trial. At this time, however, and particularly in light of the egregious facts and circumstances surrounding his unfair prosecution, arrest, and trial, the president has determined to commute his sentence.
Yeah.
Roger Stone has suffered greatly. He was treated very unfairly, as were many others in this case, but Roger Stone is now a free man. Everybody, welcome Roger Stone.
Thank you very much.
You have to contain him, you know.
Amazing crowd. I can't wait to hear what I have to say. Look, I'm not going to kid myself. Half of you came to hear what I had to say. The other half came to see, what the hell is he going to wear? I am able to be with you tonight solely because of a courageous act of clemency in which the President of the United States, on the basis of both mercy and justice, commuted my sentence because I was the last victim of a political prosecution that never should have happened.
Yeah.
We now know, on the basis of declassified documents that were ultimately released because of the heroic efforts of Rick Grinnell, serving as the acting DNI director, that the entire Mueller investigation had no legal basis, that there was no evidence of collusion between the Russian state and the Trump campaign. This was just the first of 3 efforts to undo the results of the 2016 election. I don't want to dwell on the past tonight. I want to talk about the future. But before I do that, I want to congratulate Jim Bowden on his victory and wish him the very best in his race against Congressman Ted Douche. This guy, Congressman Boyd, is one of the most odious con men, one of the worst hucksters since, I don't know, Adam Schiff. As recently as a hearing in which, well, you really couldn't call it a hearing, Attorney General Barr appeared before the House Judiciary Committee, where members were allowed to stand up, make mini speeches, and then cut him off from answering their question. But during that process, Ted Deutsch misstated, distorted, and lied about the facts regarding my case, my sentencing, and the process of my commutation repeatedly. Now, I'm kind of used to this because the Senate Intelligence Committee released their report late last week, just in time for the 2016 election, and they once again recycled the same completely debunked false narrative regarding Russian collusion and the Trump campaign. And specifically, when it came to me, they said that although Roger Stone denied ever discussing WikiLeaks or the WikiLeaks releases with candidate Trump, and although President Trump, in his written answers to Special Counsel Mueller, said that he had no recollection of having discussed the WikiLeaks disclosures with Roger Stone, we have assessed that Stone had multiple conversations with the president regarding the WikiLeaks disclosures. Assessed. That's the word that the intelligence agencies use when they have a theory that they have no evidence or proof whatsoever of. And that is the case here. They also assessed that there were multiple contacts between the Russian state and the Trump campaign. So they're telling us that the Senate Intelligence Committee
which is really run by the vice chairman, Mark Warner, from Virginia, a man who should be prosecuted for leaking the Carter-Page FISA application, was able to learn things that Robert Mueller, with full subpoena power and an unlimited budget and a platoon of left-wing, angry Democrat lawyers, could not find. The entire Senate Intelligence Committee report is a joke. It is recycled bullshit. For those of you who want to read about this in greater detail, I just posted a piece at stonecoldtruth.com, my website, where, as I think most of you know, for over 16 months, I was unconstitutionally gagged from posting or saying anything in public. How can this happen in America? My trial was a Soviet-style show trial in which the judge prohibited every powerful line of defense. I couldn't argue that Comey, Brennan, Clapper, or Rosenstein, McCabe, Hillary all lied to Congress, but they weren't prosecuted. But they lied about material matters. They lied about consequential matters, substantial matters. They lied to cover other underlying crimes. Any misstatement that I made in my voluntary appearance before the House Intelligence Committee was completely innocuous. There was no underlying crime to hide. We now know definitively precisely what happened. The prosecutors working for Mr. Mueller went to a number of judges and magistrates and said, we have evidence of Roger Stone committing treason, espionage, conspiracy against the United States, mail fraud, wire fraud, money laundering of millions of rubles into campaign donations in violation of the Foreign Campaign Contributions Act, the assassination of Abraham Lincoln. They had a list of 18 crimes. They got full access to all my emails, all my text messages, all my phone calls, all of my records, and they could find no evidence of any of those crimes. They could find no evidence of Russian collusion. They could find no evidence of WikiLeaks collaboration. They could find no evidence, this is one of their favorites, that I knew about the WikiLeaks obtaining and publishing John Podesta's emails in advance of their publication. So I was charged with the fabricated crimes of lying to Congress. But I couldn't argue that all those Democrats had lied to Congress. I was also, interestingly enough, prohibited from raising in my defense the misconduct of the Special Counsel's Office, the FBI, the Department of Justice, or any member of Congress, Adam Schiff. You see, what happened here is the prosecutor took the fruits of his investigation, took my emails, sent them to Adam Schiff. Adam Schiff crafted a series of gotcha questions, most of which, all of which was innocuous, hiding no underlying crimes. I, of course, tripped on these innocuous questions. Then, in violation of House rules and the law, Adam Schiff sent my classified testimony back to the special counsel, where Andrew Weissman cobbled together an indictment. And they said that we could not randomly select the judge, that my case was related to the case of the 17 Russians they said had hacked the DNC. A case that hasn't come to trial, a case in which there is no discovery, but a case in which the special counsel promised that they would introduce evidence from that case in my case, which of course they didn't, meaning they defrauded the court. That is how I ended up in front of Judge Amy Berman Jackson. I'm not going to comment on that. In any event, this has been a horrific ordeal, but the left-wing line of the day, just so you're familiar with it, is Roger Stone traded his silence for clemency in his case. Silence about what? No, Roger Stone refused to fold to the pressure on July 14th of 2019, when the Mueller prosecutors proposed to my lawyers that I cooperate, that I remember, that I would come clean, that I should confess that 29 phone conversations between myself and candidate Trump in 2016 had been about coordinating with the Russians the WikiLeaks disclosures, which never happened, and I refuse to fold like a chair.
Yeah.
So it was in this very room just nights ago when history was made. I was up on this very platform. I was backstage with Laura Loomer's major contributors. I didn't know whether to come out and give my remarks in Yiddish or English. Laura Loomer and I have been friends for a long time. Back to her days as an investigative reporter with Project Veritas. She is a woman of enormous strength. She's a woman of enormous courage. She's a woman of enormous spirit. She is indefatigable. She is brave. And it is essential that people understand that Lois Frankel is about to be Loomer.
Yeah.
But Laura Loomer is more than that. She is the new face of the Republican Party. Not the old country club Republican Party of yesterday, but the party of working people, the party of constitutional liberty, the party of freedom, and the party that will stand up against the evils of Islamic terrorism.
Yeah.
The analogy that I used standing right here the other night was she was the Joan of Arc of the conservative movement. But another analogy comes to mind. Just as the Bible tells us that Esther saved Israel from complete annihilation, Laura Loomer was. Now, instead of talking about where we are going, and I want to talk a little bit about how we got here. You see, 2016 was the year in which the mainstream media lost their stranglehold on political discourse in this country. Up until then, political narrative in this country was controlled by 3 television networks, 2 cable news networks. In the 70s, it was controlled by a series of national news magazines that are no longer with us. But it is still a fact that the rise of a vibrant, robust, alternative media based in the internet allowed for the election of a brash outsider from New York who dared greatly to challenge the status quo. Donald Trump was written off and underestimated by the political establishment in this country, by the 2-party duopoly who, working together over the last 30 years, has given us endless war, where our inherent national interests are not clear, but where we are spending treasure and blood. The erosion of our civil liberties, where the Director of Intelligence can say to the Congress, oh no, there's no keeping of micro data on the American people. Yet where is General Clapper now after lying to Congress under oath? Well, he's teaching ethics at Vermont College and he's a commentator for CNN. They have given us immigration policies that punish the people who want to come here legally and wait in line for the promise of a better life in America, while rewarding those who come here illegally with benefits and rights they do not deserve, at the same time making our communities and our streets less safe. They've given us international, one-size-fits-all, omnibus trade pacts that are great for our trading partners, but have sucked the jobs out of America. They have given us fiscal policies that leave us deep in debt, and tax rates are confiscatory that discourage the small businessman, the small businesswoman, and the entrepreneur. They have run the country into the ground, and then in 2016, the times met the man. Donald Trump came along at the very last minute to save this country from hurtling over the cliff to globalism, and God bless him for it. I've known Donald Trump for almost 40 years. He did not run for president because of the glory and honor of the office. He did not run for president because he needed a bigger house or a better plane. He already had those. He didn't run for president so he could make money. In fact, this job has cost him a couple $2 billion off of his net worth. He didn't run because he wanted to be well known. He was the best known business person on the face of the planet. He ran, ladies and gentlemen, because he loves this country and he could not bear to see what was happening to it. As the president said, we don't win anymore, and it is time for America to win again. The experts, the pointy-headed intellectualoids of the fake news media insisted that America's greatest days were behind us. They insisted that for structural reasons, we had to, as a country, accept a back seat in the global economy. Just face up to the fact that America will not be a leader anymore, that we can no longer be number one. And Donald Trump refused to accept that. And yes, Barack Obama, he did wave the wand of tax reduction, the wand of regulatory reduction, the wand that encourages business to expand, to bring jobs here. He renegotiated our trade agreements, and he brought us the greatest job growth in our history, the greatest wage growth in our history, and the highest levels of employment among every subset of Americans, including African Americans, Hispanic Americans, Asian Americans, women, and so on. It was a miracle. Now, the president's critics and his opponents, who never accepted the results of the 2016 election, who wasted 3 years of the public's time and the taxpayers' money on the Russian collusion hoax, then pivoted to the hastily assembled Ukrainian collusion hoax, except for they bumped into Joe Biden when they got there. Now they seek to benefit from the fallout of what is a legitimate health crisis in this country. Now, the president, in my view, had no choice but to err on the side of caution. He's not a doctor, he's not a scientist, and he's not a politician. He's a political leader. There's a big difference. And in order to protect the public health, he had no choice but to close down one of the most vibrant economies in the world, perhaps the most vibrant economy we ever had. Now, his critics seek to profit politically from that. Thank God the projections of the scientists and the doctors were wrong, but we had no way of knowing. The president acted responsibly, and he stopped flights from China because it is China, not Russia, that is the #1 enemy of this country on the face of the planet. They import deadly viruses to us. They manipulate our currency. They steal our copyrighted material. They cheat they are the greatest danger in the world, and it is extraordinary and just coincidental that they just happened to pay Joe Biden's son $1.4 billion. A guy who's never managed a dollar in his life. That's quite a payoff. So how can we believe there's nothing untoward about that transaction, that Joe Biden would have a free hand on China? He's already told us China isn't competing with us. China is not a danger. I say Joe Biden is bought and paid for.
Absolutely.
Every election, and I have worked for 4 Republican presidents, every election is framed in this way. You have to be able to state in one sentence the reason why people should vote for you and not your opponent. And therefore, I would pose this as the central question of the 2020 election. Who better to rebuild America's broken economy than a man who has already proven that he knows exactly how to do it and can do it again, or a man whose prescription for the economy, higher taxes, more regulation, and more big omnibus trade deals will make the sick patient die? That is the choice for the American people. And then we need people to really understand who Joe Biden and Kamala Harris really are. As chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee, Joe Biden is the father of the 1994 crime bill. He used to call it the Biden bill. This is the law which mandates the harsh, mandatory penalties for the first-time, nonviolent crime of possession of small amounts of drugs for personal use. I'm not for drug legalization. I'm for judges having discretion, but this law is a social, economic, and racist failure. It has fallen disproportionately on the shoulders of black people and poor people, and it is time to follow the president's lead in his Second Chance Act. You see, Joe Biden's drug law has destroyed families, it has destroyed lives, it has rehabilitated no one. It has cost taxpayers, if you're a conservative, billions of dollars to incarcerate and feed people who are not violent criminals. I have been a critic of the war on drugs for 30 years. I didn't stumble on this yesterday. This is Richard Nixon's single greatest mistake, but let's be clear, it was turbocharged by Joe Biden and Bill Clinton, and it's time to repeal these mandatory sentences. Take, for example, the single mother of 3 who is struggling to support her children and is caught with a small amount of marijuana in her purse. 25 years, hard time, ridiculous. It's time to give a judge discretion in that case. Drug abuse is a public health problem. It is not a criminal justice problem. But Joe Biden still stands by this flawed legislation. He argued with a woman voter in New Hampshire about what a great success this has been, and there has been no more zealous prosecutor of this law than Kamala Harris. The only person who's incarcerated more black people running for office in 2020 other than Joe Biden is none other than former district attorney and attorney general Kamala Harris. Look at her record. She giggles when she's asked whether she ever smoked 420. What about those poor people she put away? What about those people where she argued that they should serve beyond their sentence so the state could make use of their cheap $2 a day labor? That is the real Kamala Harris. We have an obligation to contrast that with the President's Second Chance Act. It is the President who is helping those people locked in the bowels of our penal system for impossibly long sentences, You're going to hear one of them at the Republican National Convention. I would like to see the president take cannabis off of the Schedule I DEA list. I'm not calling for its legalization by this president, but I am calling for its decriminalization. It is manifestly safer than opioids. Let's be very clear about what we face. This will be an extraordinarily difficult election. Yes, I believe we are behind today, but in no poll that I have read are we so far behind that the president cannot make up that ground. First and foremost, we need debates. Like Nixon and Kennedy, I think we need 4 debates. I would not suggest to the president that he accept the proposed schedule of the Presidential Commission on Debates because it is not appointed by the president, it is not a commission, and it is most certainly not about debate. It is about limiting debate. The President of the United States is the incumbent and has the political authority to say, hey, Joe, next Thursday night, Fox News, you and I, no moderator, toe to toe. Let's go. Now, suddenly, you see all these big Democrats saying, oh, debates aren't that important, they really don't solve anything, they don't educate anybody, they're just memorized sound bites. Really? I can tell you exactly how much preparation Donald Trump did for his debates in 2016. I believe worst judgment, one of them was a tie, he was the clear winner in the other 2. You know how much time he spent memorizing lines? 0. Why? Because Donald Trump is the real deal. He is genuine. He's authentic. He's not a confection. He's not a fabrication of some political consultant. He is not always eloquent, but he is always articulate. You always know exactly where he stands. Now, I believe that the mainstream media has helped confuse the people about our opposition to mail-in ballots. So they help them out. We're not opposed to absentee ballots. We are opposed, as they do in, say, Nevada, of mailing a ballot to every single registered voter in Clark County, the largest county in the state, including 200,000 ballots to people who haven't voted in at least 6 years and are most likely either dead or have moved. That is a recipe for fraud and disaster. There are 12 states who by constitution are prohibited from any kind of mail-in ballot. There are 35 states that require the showing of a photo ID. Those state laws and constitutions cannot just be swept away by some new federal law. And let me be absolutely clear. I have complete confidence in the U.S. postal system to deliver the absentee ballots in the next election as they have in every election since the beginning of time. We also face the issue of internet censorship. Laura Loomer is the only person on the face of the planet more censored than I am. I'm jealous. If you're not on Parler, get on Parler. And lastly, we have the epic distortion of the corporate-owned media. I know this firsthand because I was gagged for 16 months while CNN and MSNBC, yes, and Vice News and others poured complete invective, falsehoods, lies, conjecture, destroying my public reputation while I was not free to defend myself. It is an outrage. They try it yet again today with this new line. Stone maintained his silence to cover for Trump in return for the commutation of his sentence. There is no evidence of that whatsoever other than the plea bargain-induced false testimony of Michael Cohen and Rick Gates who have no corroboration and who have told different stories at different times. False. But you've got to hand it to them. They will keep recycling the same crap over and over again. Let's be very clear then about where we are. This is, as we always say, the most important election of my lifetime, but it is. This is an epic struggle between good and evil, between light and dark, between the godly and the godless. This is a struggle not just for the survival of America and the United States, but the very survival of Western civilization itself. This is an epic battle to preserve our U.S. Constitution, and we need Donald Trump to stop this country from hurtling over the cliff yet again to atheistic, godless globalism, and we need warlords and Jim Clinton in Washington to help the president. You may be seated. I only have about another 45 minutes. But let me just say in conclusion that I'm going to hang around afterwards. We will be selling the iconic Roger Stone Did Nothing Wrong t-shirts that I was arrested in. We're going to be selling all of my books, including my first New York Times bestseller. But most importantly, we're going to be selling Roger Stones. Now, this is a simple stone to which I have signed my name, making it a Roger Stone. These were not moving very well on my website until Rolling Stone and the New York Observer and several other elitist left-wing media outlets made fun of me. Last Christmas, I sold several thousand of them. This is meant solely as a paperweight. It has no other use, even though it is an exact historic replica of the very stone that little David used to take down the lion.
Ladies and gentlemen, give it up once again for Mr. Roger Stone. Thank you, Roger.
I gave him a coin with him. Oh, you did?
Come on, Club-8.24.2020 USA. Thank you.
Give him another one.
We'll see him on the 16th. We'll have to contain him to 5 minutes.
Well, he said already got one.
We're going to have to contain him to 5 minutes.
For September 22nd.
All right, Tom, say goodbye.
Book release for Judge Judeo-Christian.
Say goodbye, Tom.
Look forward to seeing you again. Thanks for coming out.
Folks, if anybody wants to buy a book, if anybody wants an autograph signature,
All right, here we are.
Please walk forward to the stage. Please walk forward to the stage, turn left, and the line starts right here in front of the stage. Come forward to the stage, and that's the line for the book sales. Thank you.
I'm not going. We win Florida, 20 electoral votes, we get the whole thing. We save Western.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you're coming up for as Vinny said,